I'm just speaking on the behalf of every employee because I'm one of them who basically was, let's say, his rights were taken away. I don't mind taking the risks or whatever.
You went too far. That's one of the messages I received after my last video where I exposed Albania's flag carrier. I thought I was just investigating a messy airline, but I eventually realized that I had stepped into something much bigger. And what happened next took on a life of its own.
Një investigim I publikuar në YouTube nga gazetari zviceran me origjinë amerikane, johnnyg, ka ndezur një debat të gjerë mbi funksionimin, financat dhe drejtimin e Air Albania.
People in Albania were debating it, the media was covering it, people were fired, and some of the many messages I received were concerning. To understand what truly unfolded after my last video and what it reveals about Air Albania and the machinery behind it, I pushed further. I spoke to former staff members and followed the traces they left behind. What emerged from that process, especially around safety culture, hidden networks and deliberate mismanagement, was darker and more unsettling than anything I had anticipated. If you have not seen my first video, I strongly suggest you watch it beforehand. But to put it briefly, I released a YouTube investigation that exposed Air Albania's massive network of corruption, hidden debts and strange ownership links. My simple attempt to fly with them basically led me straight into a maze of missing money, unclear contracts and rumors of mafia influence. After the video went live, things in Albania started moving fast. High-ranking figures were dismissed and aviation authorities launched formal investigations. Now, I'm not delusional enough to think that that's a direct result of my video, but what is undeniable is that the report ignited something. It sparked a wave of media coverage across Albania. I guess you don't often see a Swiss guy digging through their national airline's dirty laundry, but I was genuinely pleased it was largely received positively. My intention was never to damage Albania's image, but to shine a light on the shady dealings and to push for justice for the staff who've been left in limbo and for the Albanian taxpayers footing the bill. The point is that the story triggered real consequences, so what matters now is getting as close to the truth as possible with the tools I have. Hi, I've been doing a deep dive on the topic of Air Albania for couple of weeks now, and to be honest, I'm so overwhelmed because it's just there are so many information and my contacts are reaching out to me basically on a daily basis. There's so much outrageous, unbelievable stuff, and to be honest, I don't even know where to start, but I will be trying to bring some clarity and structure into this mess, into this chaos which is Air Albania. Now, this is by far the deepest research I've ever done for a video, but I just couldn't resist digging deeper. Obviously, I do admit that my initial investigation stirred up some serious pushback. While the response to my video was overwhelmingly positive, there were also some, let's say, intimidating messages, but we will get to that later. What really got my attention, more than the threats, more than the media reports, was the information that started coming in from inside the airline itself. It quickly became clear just how sensitive this topic is in Albania. Nevertheless, a former Air Albania employee was willing to give me an interview. I'm calling him Agon, which is not his real name because I promised him complete anonymity. Of course, I still did my own background check on him to confirm that he actually worked for Air Albania. Before I go any further, one thing is important to say clearly. Everything you're about to hear is based on interviews, written statements, and media reports combined with my own research. Some of the claims come from insiders who ask to remain anonymous. This is not my opinion piece, this is an investigation based on the information available to me at this point. What drew me in most at the very start of our interview was the origin of it all. I wanted to know when the dream of a successful Albanian flag carrier cracked for the first time.
Since January 2024, that's when things were unclear, scrapped, vague, foggy. I'll tell you exactly when. The aircraft Alpha Sierra Mike, Zulu Alpha Alpha Sierra Mike, that has been deregistered recently. That aircraft was seized in Turkey. Like, imagine there was a passenger flight that when they went to Istanbul and the crew could not come back because first of all the refueling company refused to give us fuel. We were not really sure exactly what's happening, but maybe 10 months later, when the new CEO was announced, that's where everything made sense, like why things crumbled. Since the CEO was changed, the current one came in, that was when the Titanic happened.
Another former staff member later shared a story with me that closely mirrored what I had already heard. I will call him Luan. He answered my questions in writing and independently pointed to the same breaking point. According to him, the collapse truly began after the new CEO took control. Now, in my earlier investigation, I had mainly focused on Sinan Idrisi, a controversial businessman who, according to multiple media reports, has been linked to, let's say, questionable operations. What I had not uncovered at that stage is that there was another Sinan playing a key role in the background. His name is Sinan Ishik. An article by Albanian media accuses the two Sinans and a tight inner circle for siphoning off the lost money through a front company in the CEO's partner's name. Also, former staff members of Air Albania do not hold Sinan Ishik in high regard.
We know when he talks, you can see narcissism is literally flaring out of him. It's all about him. So me, I, this, that, right? So he has that emotional intelligence that he knows how to say the right words or the right approach to the people who don't really know much what's going on, right? Albanians are really humble people, huh? And he knows that for a fact, and he's taken advantage of that. And I do understand like why they insisted on bringing him, which doesn't make sense. He has no executive managerial position ever in his life. He's an alcoholic. Non-alcoholic, in fact. Everyone knows where he goes and he drinks his wine every day.
The accusations raised by former Air Albania staff members against Sinan Ishik carry significant weight. As an outsider, I cannot independently verify every detail. Still, I made a deliberate effort to hear all sides and offered the airline and everyone involved, including Ishik, the opportunity to respond and to present their vision. By the time this video is released, I have still received no reply to my inquiry. Air Albania's website and social media channels also remain silent on the matter. But it's more than just character. According to Aegon, Sinan Ishik also bears responsibility for the moment when Turkish Airlines began to quietly distance itself from Air Albania. He says the major support started to fade already last year, long before Turkish officially decided to withdraw.
The aviation industry is booming. The fact that there was Turkish Airlines behind the airline, I mean, I can't even tell you like what a blessing that was, but oh my god, they spat on it, to be honest with you. It's unbelievable. When the Albanian shareholders, they insisted on bringing that guy as a CEO, Turkish Airlines said, listen, we'll cancel all the plans, no expansion. If you guys are insistent on that guy, fine, but you guys would pay for maintenance, you guys would pay for this, you guys would pay for this, you guys would pay for that. In fact, maintenance sometimes, we don't really get support until they're paid, right? Before we didn't have to pay, right?
The abrupt loss of backing from Turkish Airlines hit a young carrier at its most vulnerable point. Behind the scenes, operations began to strain and routines started to fracture. On the front line, it was the crew and the passengers who felt the shift first, long before the wider crisis became visible to the outside world.
We started taking fuel from Tirana to fly to Istanbul, and then without a feeling coming back, which increased the workload for the pilots. There were passengers, baggage that were left in Tirana, and there were passengers who were connected from Istanbul to anywhere in the world, especially the US, right? And their bags were trapped in Tirana because of that, right? So Turkish totally backed off since almost 2 years. And let me tell you, since this guy came in, 30 plus, 40 plus lawsuits against the company. He fired people left and right wrongfully. He did a lot of things he's supposed to do.
According to my source, Ishik was also responsible for a series of questionable financial decisions and apparent mismanagement. He claims that this is when the airline's finances began to unravel just after Air Albania had finally reached the point of breaking even.
He's the one who signs who gets paid, who does not get paid. He hired many lease companies, and one of them's SkyUp, I think from Ukraine. They took them to court, in fact. A few companies, in fact, from Georgia, from Turkey, a few different ones, you know. B-20s, 737s, here and there. Sometimes he would lease aircraft for 2 or 5 days, things like that, you know. So really fishy things, you know.
When developments like these begin to surface, one would expect the government to step in and shield the national carrier from collapse. According to Agon, however, that is not what followed. He claims that instead of intervention, an opposite dynamic began to take shape.
He was very protected by the authority, because before he came in, I remember the authority used to do a lot of audits within the company. But since this guy came in, like one or two roughly every once in a blue moon, you know what I mean? So it was very funny, you know? I knew the insides of what's happening, right? I was connected very well with people inside. I knew what was happening, but people who were not inside, they had no idea what's going on. They just said they don't even know why their salaries are late or any of that, right?
The picture that emerges is that of a manager who appeared indifferent to the financial exposure of his own company, despite having once been one of its pilots. Agon described to me how Sinan Ishik rose through the ranks from the cockpit into senior management and later into the role of senior vice president, long before he became CEO in 2024. Even back then, his name was already tied to controversy. Agun claims Ishik was ultimately dismissed as unfit for the role. Turkish Airlines, which held a stake in Air Albania, allegedly prepared legal action and sent the airline's head of HR to court with evidence against him. What followed, according to Agun, took a darker turn. The HR representative was said to have been personally close to Ishik and also related to shareholder Sinan Idrisi. The key documents never reached the court. Without them, the case collapsed. Ishik walked free.
He was fired, he took the company to court, they didn't get the evidences, and that's how he won the case, wrongfully.
In 2024, he returned as CEO. That, according to my source, is when the culture inside the airline truly changed.
The only talk within the company was salary. So the safety culture dropped drastically. When the current CEO came in, even for pilot training, the people who were removed from the training and the management and the people who came in, let me tell you, they were a joke. Obviously, I don't see, I don't speak, I don't hear.
My other contact added that while safety was respected in principle, growing pressure on maintenance teams and widening communication gaps began to introduce risks that could have been avoided. And do you think when people started to realize that it was going downhill, did they feel safe to speak up?
No, the culture, and let me tell you this, it was very hush-hush. People who were vocal were me and maybe 2 or 3 individuals only. Like I spoke truth, I never kept quiet because what I'm gonna lose, what they gonna do? They're like, kill me, take him out, right? When things were not right, I spoke up, right?
At that point, the airline was already sliding into a steep decline. Mismanagement was no longer an abstract concern, and Air Albania's fleet began to shrink step by step.
The 319 was taken back to Ireland in 2024 May. It was scrapped. Their aircraft was really... It had a lot of issues, right? So it was scrapped for parts. And then we stayed with only two aircrafts. And then at some point, the aircraft, Mike Makilo, was just stuck in Istanbul, and then we just stayed with 1 aircraft.
With only 1 aircraft left in service and the finances in disarray, the pressure on the company became overwhelming. Generating profit was impossible, but instead of pursuing a sustainable recovery, the airline drifted deeper into scandal. According to my source, money began to leave the company under opaque circumstances and questionable justifications. One example he points to is the airline's catering supplier, which apparently is owned by a relative of the Albanian shareholder.
The catering company won the case against Air Albania, and they won around, Air Albania was supposed to pay the catering 4 million euros, right? But I heard the catering owner is related to the Albanian shareholder, so I don't know what's going on. It's quiet right now. Maybe they had a deal with themselves, I don't know, right? Or maybe there was something done on purpose to, you know what I mean? Washing machine. I don't know. You know. See, yeah, it's very easy to get things lost in aviation because there are aircraft leasing, catering, every department, logistics, cargo, etc. There, you don't know where's what.
The money that drained away under opaque circumstances and without any transparent financial reporting left a growing void inside the company. It was only a matter of time before that absence translated into real pressure on the workforce.
Last year, Christmas, people went to their family empty-handed because that CEO was not paying salaries. But he's leasing aircraft and he's paying them per block hour 5,000 plus euros. And they're getting the money ahead in time. So, and let me tell you, cabin crew, their basic salary without flying, which we barely even fly, is set between 500 to 700 euros. He's that cheap, not even paying them this basic salary. And giving them false hopes a lot of employees, they are not going to get the rightful rights.
My other contact, Luan, also told me that he stopped receiving his salary months before he finally left the company. The financial strain and emotional pressure, he says, became overwhelming. He remains in contact with former colleagues who are still inside the airline. They report deep uncertainty, collapsing morale, and in some cases up to 4 months of unpaid wages. For Luan, this is exactly why the protection of employee rights matters so deeply to him. He sees the documentation of what happened not only as a personal necessity, but as something that is crucial for the workforce and for the credibility of the entire industry. Air Albania does not deny that salaries are late and in many cases still unpaid. Yet, instead of resolving the situation, the company appears to be stretching the process to its limits. According to those affected, every legal loophole and procedural delay is being exploited to push the moment of payment further and further down the line. However, employees like Agon still cling to the hope that the state will step in and cover the wages they are legally owed.
10% is owned by Out Control, which is government, so I'm protected in a way.
Yeah. So your hope is that the government will basically eventually jump in and pay the unpaid salary?
They have to, by the law. By the law, they have to, yeah.
Air Albania, in its current form, will they survive? Or do you think it's too late?
Do I think the company will recover? Absolutely not. Unless America will happen, some guy will just fly into Albania and he's going to pay those millions of debt. But if you think about it, the people who are basically running the company right now, they are not really meant to run a company. You don't really manage an airline like that. That the company can function for the next while on a muscle memory. They'll keep on doing what they're doing, if you know what I mean. Right? And then once they reach the end, kaput. Bye-bye.
As the situation around Air Albania continues to shift at a rapid pace, many observers now believe the airline is entering its final phase. Just days after my interview with Agon, he contacted me again. He told me that the video was making significant waves and that shortly after its release, EASA, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, had opened an investigation into the airline. To be clear, I do not claim this happened because of my video. As a matter of fact, developments like these are rarely driven by a single trigger, but Agon then shared what he described as credible information that Air Albania's air operator certificate could be suspended, at least temporarily, and very soon. Not long after, Luan sent me a message saying this had apparently already happened and that the airline had been grounded for 2 days as a result. As of now, however, I have found no official public confirmation of such a decision. A few days ago, Agon contacted me again. This time he was concerned about a series of comments and threats circulating around the investigation. It did not make me abandon the work, but I would be lying if I said it did not leave me uneasy with a strange weight in my stomach. After checking the situation more closely, he told me that the warnings were likely not to be taken too seriously. That brought some relief. Yet the larger picture remains unresolved. There is still far more beneath the surface. Questions continue to surround the murky role of Albania's Minister of Infrastructure and Energy, Belinda Balukum, who allegedly held significant influence over what was happening inside the airline and was later dismissed over corruption allegations after my previous video. Multiple sources and reports also point toward the wider involvement of the government, with claims that even the Prime Minister is fully aware of what is unfolding. I explored that dimension in depth in my last investigation. By now, it comes as little surprise that corruption plays a role and that business and politics appear deeply intertwined. Still, I want to be absolutely clear. The purpose of this investigation is not to damage Albania's image. It is to bring opaque dealings into the light and to seek a measure of justice for the employees and for the Albanian taxpayer. Air Albania is also not the only airline whose grand ambitions have ended in chaos for passengers. My own 30-hour nightmare with China Eastern Airlines is proof of that. You can watch the story here. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.